Hi, good evening, folks, and welcome to this week's edition of the Minority Report. I'm Marlon David, your host on this program, and this evening promises to be just as informative, just as exciting, just as mind-blowing at times as several of our other programs have continued to be. I want to thank you, as I always do, for being the type of audience and viewers that you are. You have continued to support us. You've continued to keep us as the #1 viewed current affairs program in Tobago, and fast becoming a real staple in Trinidad. Many persons have been reaching out. Many Tobagonians who live in Trinidad have also been reaching out and commenting and congratulating the minority for providing a platform where Tobagonians all over the world, the diaspora, that they can be reliably informed and not be plagued with only the misinformation in many cases that come forth out of the administration and agencies connected to it. As aligned to the mandate, the minority is mandated to hold the administration accountable with respect to the way that they govern the island of Tobago and the way that they manage the resources. And this minority has in fact embraced that task with passion and with clarity, understanding what is at stake, understanding that it is the patronage of the people of Tobago that is at stake. And as the old saying, or the quote that has now been made famous by the late Frederick Douglass, the only thing necessary for the proliferation of evil is when good men do nothing. And so it is going to be remiss of the minority leader, the minority council and team to sit idly by and allow the administration to create, as we have been experiencing, the seeming chaos that Tobago is now under. And I dare say that the island is under siege. Siege at all levels. Siege in terms of crime, siege in terms of the overall criminal activities and road fatalities, siege even from a spiritual perspective, where we are seeing some strange occurrences taking place, things that we have not before seen. So many of us, those who are spiritually inclined, can indeed identify that there is something taking place in the spiritual, in the atmosphere, as it were, that is negatively impacting the island of Tobago. But also siege with respect to this administration's mismanagement of the resources of the Tobago House of Assembly. And so this minority will continue to forge forward in its mandate, understanding that mandate and representing not just the 12,000 voices and voters that would have voted for the People's National Movement, but representing the voice of every single Tobagonian, every single stakeholder in Tobago, every resident, everyone who has a vested interest in Tobago's development, in Tobago's autonomy, in Tobago's progress, in Tobago's advancement. Every single individual in those brackets are represented by the minority leader, the minority council, and the minority team at large. And so I want to say thank you. Thank you for those who speak up. Thank you for those who stay silent. Thank you for those who just simply listen. Thank you for those who view. I want to say thank you even for those who constantly come on this program every single week and criticize and challenge and so on, and say that the program is not making any sense. But I thank you for being a loyal viewer and a loyal listener to a program that makes no sense. It speaks volumes in terms of how you view yourself. But I want to thank everyone. As usual, I want to encourage us as we log in this evening to share our comments, let's communicate, but let's be respectful. Let's respect each other on the platform And let's remember that the Minority Report is a family program. Families come together on a Tuesday night and sit. So we have children who log in and children who listen to the program. Let us be the examples that we are supposed to be to help the next generation navigate through what we can already identify as a very tumultuous era of human existence. This evening, if you are logged in, you can view us on the Tobago Updates website. You can view us on the Tobago Updates YouTube channel. And you can also log into the Tobago Updates Facebook page. If you are an Amplia subscriber, however, you can turn your television to channel 102 on the Amplia network, and you can have continuous, consistent, unending programming of the Tobago Updates network. But more importantly, you can view us live every Tuesday night here at 8 p.m., bringing you the facts, bringing you the investigations, bringing you the queries, bringing you the questions, in some cases bringing you the letters. And tonight is no different, because I have something that would have been sent to me anonymously, and I wasn't even aware that phone calls can come in unknown anymore. But someone would have called anonymously and requesting that they remain anonymous, and shed some light on a very, very troubling matter taking place within one of our divisions. Very critical division, I must say. And so we may also ventilate some of the concerns tonight and call on the relevant authorities to fix it. Yeah? So folks, I want to take the opportunity to welcome you yet again. If you have your comments or you want to share any particular information that you may not want to put on the Facebook page, on the live and so on, you can send a WhatsApp to 284-6597. That's 284-6597, or 356-8833. That's 356-8833. And you can do so, I mean, if you're willing to share us, send us some photographs, send us some relevant information that you've gotten. We have been ably assisted by many individuals who fall in the category of whistleblowers, people who have the right heart and passion for Tobago's development and Tobago's advancement, and have seen it fit to reach out to us and send information, provide us with information, provide us with what we call in local terms a heads up as to what is taking place. And we in turn reach out, we advocate, we find a way to get the information out there and hold the relevant parties accountable. We have seen instances where we have ventilated issues on the Minority Report on the Tobago Updates network, and persons would have called us and indicated that they have been receiving certain levels of relief. They have seen things beginning to happen, and so we will continue along that vein, along that path, until all of Tobago is getting the governance and the government that it deserves. So folks, tune in, continue to tune in, message your friends, relatives, get your families together, and let's come around as we enter into our discussions this evening on the Minority Report. We're going to take a short break, and when we get back, I'm going to introduce my guests in studio, and we begin this evening's program. Have a wonderful evening. Stay logged on, stay locked on. Share the live, share the live, share the live. And I'm saying have a wonderful evening because I expect you to get something to eat, get something to drink, put your foot up on the stool, and just enjoy the program as we progress. So we'll be back shortly.
Now, if you pull a random person aside and ask them, can you tell me what Tobago's autonomy is all about? Would they be able to answer you? The sad reality is, they wouldn't. Many young persons from the island of Tobago have not been engaging in the discussions when it comes to Tobago's autonomy. And while that may be a problem, thankfully Tobago Updates has found a solution. We have gathered some of Tobago's best and brightest young persons to hear their views, their thoughts and opinions about Tobago's autonomy. Last week, we heard from other young people such as Ms. Jada Charles, youth parliamentarian, Keegan Danoon, president of the Boko Village Council and former CARICOM youth ambassador, Darian Mitchell, president for TYC, and myself in my capacity as CARICOM youth ambassador. We touched on the surface a bit, but thankfully, this week, we will be taking things a bit deeper. So, on Wednesday, the 17th of January, tune in right here on Tobago Updates Live at 7 a.m. as we discuss all things Tobago autonomy from a deeper perspective. Is Tobago ready or are we not? We'll find out together.
As you come in. Long time I see you. This station pumping. Ready for children party. Mommy! Jay, you can't go nowhere with these children. And you know you can't depend on Kevin neither Steven to see about them. Yes, total waste. So I supposed to stay home whole time? Jada is 12. She could see about that. You just leave Jada to see about Kia and Kayla? I thought it was your mother or your sister. Who? Them always busy. Jada could handle that. She cooking and cleaning a long time. And the next two, better know what time it is. It's only me, you know. I will talk to my mother. She just home these days. She will make sure the children okay. Alright. Let me see the moves for later.
Before your ramage, make sure the children okay. Call 996 to report all child abuse now. A message from the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, folks, and we are back. And the Minority Report, always ready and consistent. And I just want to make that point before going forward. One thing with the Minority Report is that we have continued to be consistent in our programming, in our reporting to the people of Tobago. And this cannot be said about any other program on any other network. I think that we are well heading into 2 years since being on air, 2 complete years. We have not abdicated our responsibility to the people of Tobago, and we have consistently come here, rain, storm, thunder, lightning, even in blackouts, and brought you the information, brought you the facts. This evening is no different, and we will continue to do so until some sort of order is restored to the island of Tobago. This evening with me in studio, I want to welcome and introduce, as I usually do, the Minority Councillor, Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit. Welcome, Petal, to the program.
Thank you, Marlon. Good evening, Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, and wherever you are listening and viewing us. I think this is the first time I've been on for the new year, so I want to also take the opportunity to say Happy New Year, Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago. Best wishes to you, and I pray that 2024 is your best year yet. So thank you for continuing to be locked on to the Minority Reports, and of course making us the #1 program on this station.
Thank you very much, and sentiments adequately echoed. This evening, Minority Councillor, we want to kick it off with a bit of conversation that we see taking place in the public domain. We have some rumbling yet again in the area of tourism, and we would have seen, and we're going to get a bit into that in a little later on in the program, where some actions would have been taken by the minority leader. But in the build-up to that, there were some questions that were asked and contended for the Secretary of Tourism, and some information provided. Now, many of us would have been privy to some press that she would have done yesterday, where the media would have gone to the division pending a protest that was circulating, and had the opportunity to question the secretary. And one of the statements that she made with respect to the minority leader's actions is that he better revisit, because his maths not mathsing. Now, it's ironic that she would say this when the information that is provided is the information that comes from her and the division. So I know you want to just clear that up a bit for the viewing audience. So we're going to go into the question that would have been asked with respect to the carnival spending. And then you are going to do what you do best, the financial breakdown and so on, so that we can understand how the maths actually is mathsing, but it's not mathsing. So I'll ask the director to pull up the questions that I would have forwarded to him just a little while ago. Yes. And Minority Councillor.
Right. So based on what we are seeing before us, of course, the minority is there to provide and ask the questions that you are seeking. And one of the questions that we would have filed in the House to the Secretary in the Division of Tourism, as we see here, is question number 33, and this one was filed by the minority leader. And basically what we are asking for is in relation to Carnival. This is the October Carnival, a detailed report of all Carnival-related expenditure incurred by the Tobago House of Assembly and its agencies, and to name the beneficiary or supplier of these services, and the total Carnival-related income received by the Tobago House of Assembly and its agencies. So we would have also seen in the media where the Secretary would have spoken about the Carnival spend and the budget. And this was in Trinidad Express. I think it was an article. This was coming from a press conference after the Carnival. And the Trinidad Express had an article, and this was the 6th of October, 2023, which basically stated that the Carnival was 12.5 million. That was the amount that they expected to spend. However, they had only spent something like 9.2 million or somewhere about there. And I want to read the article so that I don't misquote.
We can also have the director pull it up.
So it says the Tobago October Carnival 2023 is being held at a cost of more than 12.25%, and the Division of Tourism, Culture and Antiquities and Transportation of the Tobago House of Assembly said yesterday. So she spoke about the estimated cost being less than what was budgeted in the previous year of 17.5%. And then she went on to say that the initial budget for the 2022 Carnival was 17.5 million, but the final cost worked out to be somewhere just over 9.2 million. Okay. Yeah? So, based on the question that is before you, the response from the Division of Tourism came, and the response identified 2 agencies that would have incurred expenditure for the October Carnival during that period. And for the Tobago Tourism Agency, the total expenditure was 2.155 million. And for the Tobago Festivals Commission, based on the report that was presented by the Secretary in her response, the expenditure was 4.67 million. If you add those 2 figures together, it's approximately 6.826 million.
Right.
So it is significantly less than the 12.5 and the 9.2 million, 9.7 thereabout million that the Secretary would have spoken about. Additionally, when we recognize that the figures were a bit off from what was previously mentioned in the press release, the minority filed another question because we thought maybe there was expenditure in other areas that may not have been captured. And when we filed a follow-up question, the same response came back.
Same figures.
Same figures, same is as if, you asked us already, we responded, so we just sending you back the same exact thing that we sent before. So the same response to the question came with all the same attachments. But what we are saying is that what was reported in the media by the Secretary and what was presented to the minority in the question, the figures don't add up. And in our view, it's a material difference. It's not like a $2 or a $10 or a $200.
Just over $2 million.
It's a material difference. And before the minority leader took this step, we actually refiled a question. We refiled a question asking, based on the response and based on the comments that we would have seen in the media, could the Secretary provide additional information? But the same information came.
Now, folks, what we want to get home here, and that's why we, in the Minority Report, we always take time to provide the public with breakdowns and explanations so that there is transparency and there is clarity in what is being said. What we're trying to do here is to show the secretaries, try to put it over that the minority leader, his information is not matching, as she said, the math's not matching. But we want to make it crystal clear that the information on all the expenditure that has been put and laid in the House and that the minority leader and councillor speaks about has been provided by the very secretary who is saying that the math's not matching. So is it that she is self-prophesying and indicating that even within her sphere that she is unable to cause the figures to actually align themselves? And it's important for the public to know this. Nothing here is just thought up on a woman fancy.
Well, we remember when the Secretary would have commented on the inaugural October Carnival, the Secretary quoted some extraordinary figure that Carnival would have incurred in terms of profits or income or whatever.
Yes.
And when questioned about, how did you arrive at those figures? I'm not sure the Secretary could have, responded in a way that persons could have accepted.
Yeah.
And what I find is, quite sad and disappointing is another attempt to, quote unquote, throw the public servants under the bus.
Wow.
Because the Secretary, in her response to the media, because the media did ask about this particular action on the Minority Report, and the Secretary in her response indicated that, try to remove herself from the equation, saying that the responses that are provided by the technocrats, are provided by the
Yes.
accounting officers. So is it that the minority leader is saying that the accounting officers deliberately provided the incorrect information?
And lying.
And we are not saying that. What we are asking you to do is to account and to have your information reconciled, because you can't say on one hand that this is the expenditure. So you're in the media and you're saying that the expenditure is X. When we file a question in the House, Y comes. How do you reconcile the both?
Yeah, very, very disingenuous. When she said that, I laughed because I was like, but you are the one who is responsible ultimately as the Secretary of Division to provide the information in the House in response to the question. So to say or to try to twist it, to try to put the minority leader in a place where it comes as if he's chastising the public servants. But again, this is nothing new from this administration. We have consistently seen them throw public servants under the bus. And even what we've been seeing here with this question with respect to Carnival, because if you remember, Minority Councillor, a question would have been asked as well to the Secretary of Infrastructure with respect to a list of what he said was 40 contractors.
Yes, and I think it was 6 or 8.
So
the bag of 40 became 6 or 8 contractors, if my memory serves me well.
So we definitely are seeing a pattern.
Yes, so what is said in the media
is
different to when you file a question and they have to account to the Assembly Legislature. There's 2 different responses you get. So then you ask yourself, which is the truth?
What is really the truth? And that is what we very calmly always try to guide the public to.
And can you take their word for it?
Exactly. Can you take their word for anything? And I mean, what was also noteworthy is the fact that the media, the conversation that was being had with the media was again with respect to another very concerning matter that has been going on in tourism, where we've been seeing a number of persons owed. And later in the program, I know the minority leader will also shed some light on that. A number of persons owed. And the secretary is coming to again say that the public servants and the systems and the procurement bill, when it was proclaimed, and then certain changes, and then the change administrator, and all these excuses as to why persons have not been paid from since July last year. One of the questions that I was glad was asked or raised, the concerns, is that, but when persons outside of Tobago come, they are paid immediately. What is the difference? And I mean, the explanation was foolhardy.
It's something that we inherited.
They inherited this problem and it's been going on for years.
But even if that was the case, just say even if, and I'm not sure if that is the case. The mantra was we coming to fix it. And to me, this is something that should have been fixed immediately if you recognize that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And this should have been one of the immediate fixes.
Yep. Very, very much so.
But Tobago, the secretary would have indicated that person should be paid by the end of, this month, she said?
Yeah.
So we want to hold the division and the secretary to her word. We hope that we can. So that persons could be paid by the end. Because it's July. People singing, they're dancing, they're doing all sorts of things to get their funds. It is hard.
Yep.
People are experiencing severe hardship.
Yep. So folks, we also want to shift remain in this same conversation, tourism related, but we want to be able to shift gears a bit. But we're going to pay some bills, and when we get back, we're going to shift the conversation towards a more legalistic approach and action that would have been taken. And we're going to get a bit of explanation in that and what was done so that this administration can be made to account to the people of the island of Tobago. So stay locked on. We're going to take a break, pay some bills, and we'll be right back as we continue our discussion.
Flow is bringing Carnival and cash home with a total of $300,000 in cash back when you pay on time, sign up, or upgrade to an everything plan. Plus, we're live streaming fets, so you could wind down in your bed, hosting Blue Friday lines at your favorite hangouts. So every Friday you could play a mass and win free fet tickets plus Carnival costumes. Flow bringing Carnival home so you could like yourself. Visit in-store or discoverflow.co for more details. Flow, inspired by you. Everybody only worrying. Never ever worry. Don't mind how things looking hard. I tell them never ever worry. If your life can't get damaged bad. I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil is always right here for you. I tell them never ever worry. Don't mind if life make you sad. I tell them never ever worry. If your house get flooded out real bad. I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil is always right here for you. I tell them never ever worry. If sickness catch you off guard. I tell them never ever worry. If times fall on you real hard. I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil will always be here for you. Never worry about a thing. Tatil, where people are people. You know what I mean.
Hey, hello guys, welcome. Come have a seat. Oh, this is so stylish and I love the fabric. Darlings, you must tell us where you got your new furnishings.
We got them locally at Standard. They've got new chic European furniture, crafted from high quality material.
Oh, Standard?
No, it's Standard, their brand new Hive collection.
Experience luxurious European furniture at a price you will love. The Hive Collection, now exclusively available at Standard.
So folks, we are back. We are back on air. We are live and the studio heated. The studio is definitely heated because as we continue to unearth information, it sometimes creates heated discussions. And so with that said, let me introduce the next member of our panel this evening who has now joined us and again raring to go because there's so much has been happening and so many angles and corners he has been touching. Welcome the Minority Leader, Assemblyman Kelvin Morris, to the program this evening. How are you?
Councillor Benoit, Mr. David, Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, Me in local language, howdy. How you all doing?
We are live.
Yes.
We are live.
Thank God for that.
Definitely.
And as Marlon said, heated discussions in the studio.
Heated.
Indeed.
All
so
in
much
relation
happening.
to Tobago business, Tobago people's business.
So much happening in this space, and I'm seeing I want to commend the Tobagonians who, have now broken ranks and they're speaking up, they're speaking out. Today was one such day. One gentleman was really vocal, and sometimes I am so proud of Tobagonians in terms of how they follow the politics and they really understand what is happening. Because you would think, sometimes you look at some people and you may believe that they don't understand the issues, and when they articulate it, you recognize they are even more informed than you may, So I really want to commend the persons who are standing up for Tobago and speaking out. I remember one of the most salient points that stuck with me is when the gentleman said that basically, and I'm now summarizing, that things are so bad that he is no longer going to stand by. He says, I have to speak out. He said, I have to speak out for Tobago. I can't allow the place to continue like this. And I am happy that we have persons like that who are willing to stand in defense of Tobago, and we need more soldiers in this battle, because as I continue to tell people, I continue to tell Tobagonians, if we allow this place to continue on the trajectory that it's going, Tobago would slip so far, it would be difficult for anyone to pull it back. And therefore, we now have to be the vanguards. We now have to be the soldiers. We now have to be the voices. And we now have to be the ones that are going to hold this administration accountable. We now have to keep them on their toes. And we now have to stand up and speak out for Tobago.
Indeed.
So true. And even in the vein of speaking out, I have a short penned letter that came from a member of an employee actually of the TRH as well. I'm trusting that before we close off tonight, because that individual highlighted some very, very critical issues that are taking place at the hospital.
And I would raise a matter just by asking some questions at the very end that I received hot off the press.
Hot off the press tonight, right?
Right. So if you call a friend, tell a neighbor, I have some questions for the Secretary of Health.
Wow.
Hot off the press.
Wow.
I hope the secretary could respond. She had all the answers before she became the Secretary of Health.
This hot off the press this evening, now the minority leader have a next set.
No, it is really good that people are willing
people are coming and I thank, and the thing about, we have always said that we will protect you, the whistleblower, who you are seeing something, you understand that it's not good for Tobago, and you want it to be raised so that we can protect Tobago from going on that road. We applaud you, we thank you, and we will protect you, the whistleblower, right? Because we understand the value. It is important for information to come out in the public domain, so that in some instances we may be able to stop it even before it happened. And if it had happened already, then we are able to expose it and bring the perpetrators to justice.
Exactly. So folks, we want you to continue. Let us always have some hot off the press moments on the program. So we've been having the discussion about the question that was asked with respect to carnival spending to the Secretary of Tourism, and the response that came, Minority Councillor took a little time to give the breakdown so that persons understand that really and truly what the Secretary said is a fact that the maths not mathsing. Minority Leader, you decided, having been enraged by the blatant disrespect to Tobago by the Secretary, the Chief Secretary and the administration, you decided to take some further steps to now bring the administration to a place where they would have no choice but to try to adequately account. Help us understand what you did over the last day.
Well, as promised, right, and I think you all would have articulated and explained how we got to this point with respect to the reporting and the irregularities as it is associated with the Tobago Carnival 2022, right? And because there were so many inconsistencies, and because by now we recognize we just cannot trust the words of the leadership of this administration. You know, it really starts from the leader. And we have seen the leader display a character that is untrustworthy. We have seen the leader display a character that is at some point, and people are now describing him openly as very liar. And it is now taking root amongst the others. We have had situations where questions were asked and state secretaries are blatantly lying. One gentleman came to all of Tobago, told us the road program was selected from a bag of 40 contractors. And when we got the response officially, it whittled down to 6. And out of that 6, one gentleman had to write to every secretary to say, it is a lie. I was not part of this process in the way that he is making it out to be. And then this very secretary under question would have continuously misled the House on information. We had the situation with the executive chairman and the hiring of a CEO. We were told that they had already approved the process at the level of the executive council, and they were now only going to ratify, and the person should be on board by the end of May. May came and May went, and there was no CEO, and they came back and tell us, well, the executive council did not approve. So in one breath, they did approve, and you moved on to the process of just giving an offer. Then you come back now and say, well, no, they didn't approve. So which one of the positions should we believe? You have told us that by now Tobago would have gotten 100,000 tourists. You have moved Tobago from bringing in about 20,000 tourists a year to a situation where we have decreased to about 15,000 tourists a year or so. So rather than increasing to 100,000, we have actually decreased in numbers. You have moved to a situation where this very secretary told us that the Tobago Carnival of 2022 would have made a profit of over $300 million. I'm not even sure Trinidad Carnival makes that kind of profit. But yet, this secretary blatantly told us that the carnival was so successful. And I want to know, if this carnival was so successful and made all this money, so then how come you can't pay people for heritage? You can't pay people for jazz? You should have been we should have been having such a windfall that you paying people up front.
Yeah, that's the whole DP budget.
And so, because we know we cannot trust these people, it warrants an independent body coming into the division, looking at all the expenditure and looking at all the accounting processes and policies, including procurement. Because one of the things we have noticed, and it's quite blatant, is that that division in particular seems not to care about tendering process, seems not to care about procurement process. In fact, for that very Tobago Carnival of October, there's a situation where we saw some big costumes in town. And when we asked, how was that procured? Well, we just call somebody and give them and I want to pay them. That is how you might spend your private money if you're a private promoter. But when you are dealing with public funds, it is all about value for money. It is all about allowing for competitiveness, unless it is a situation of an emergency, and an emergency in the sense of something unforeseen, something that you could not have predicted, a hurricane, some kind of natural disaster, that kind of thing. That is an emergency. So it's not urgency. It's not because you believe I need it today for tomorrow.
Or lack of
proper planning. It is not for that. It is for a genuine emergency. That is when you sole select. But when you have persons, various suppliers, of a product that can supply. You need to provide people with the opportunity, and that is the law. And this secretary came to the house and admitted that they broke the law by simply going to somebody and just handing them a contract. So we don't even know if the money is paid, which was almost $250,000, if that was value for money, whether they could have gotten a better price elsewhere. And this is the kind of madness that has been going on. And this is why we believe it is very important that the independent authorized institution, which is the Office of the Auditor General, is the perfect place for such an investigation to take place. And we have done the work. We have done our part. We would have provided all the information. And we are hopeful that the Auditor General now will also hold true to its mandate, as you would have seen. And I want to say something to Tobago. As much as you would see me going to Trinidad and trying to get the work done for you, it is not very easy, you know. Sometimes I have to take my own person because they are making it so difficult.
Yeah.
You would know that, Marilyn Councillor, you would know that.
Well,
It's difficult.
It was always difficult to do the job.
Imagine we are being told that even for legal advice, we should go to the
legal.
So that is like the government telling the opposition leader that you should really go to the Ministry of the Attorney General for advice to treat with issues against coming out of the air. So you understand the challenges but we will continue to fight. We will continue to do the work. We will continue to push. And we are not doing it for office. We are not doing it because we just want to make, but we are doing it because we believe it's important for you, the people of Tobago, and for the development of Tobago and the future generations to come. That whoever sits in the seat of leadership does by the people, do right by the people. What is right. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And that's why we keep telling Tobagonians, take off your political hat for now. Whether you like the party, well, for some who supports the party, your party is in government. And for some who did not support, it is still the government of Tobago. And therefore, what is good, we all should support. And when we see nonsense, when we see plain corruption in the face, we have an obligation as Tobagonians first to say this is wrong.
And that's one thing the minority has been consistent with since coming into office as the minority team or the minority bench. We will support what is good, and what is not good, we will ask for transparency and accountability and seek justice. Because we were promised, and Tobago gave them an overwhelming mandate. I would continue to say it. We were promised greater transparency. We were promised greater accountability. We were promised to fix things. We were promised that things that were seemingly wrong in the past would now turn right. And what we are getting, we feel like we have been hoodwinked. And for the majority of Tobagonians, they are now saying that, you know what, we were fooled, we were duped. We think that we have made the worst mistake ever because what you promise is not what is happening. So the Chief Secretary is now, as a minority leader and all of Tobago, the Chief Secretary, the highest office holder in Tobago.
Have a nickname.
Yeah, and I really don't want to say it, but it is disappointing for the Chief Secretary.
Even children saying it.
So you can't trust his word.
And
you can't take his word to the supermarket. You can't take his word to plant corn.
And Councillor, you are so correct. You see, I don't think they didn't realize how powerful this slogan was. And let me fix this. Tobagonians really gravitated to it because Tobagonians really believed in this thing that things will be better. That is what it meant for the average Tobagonian. So whether we thought PNM got us to this point, Tobagonians believed that with this change, we will go even further. And now Tobagonians are realizing that we are not going forward. In fact, we are actually going back and going back at a very an accelerated to the point that it could be a precipitous fall that could really crash Tobago in a serious way, whether it be in the private sector. We are seeing businesses genuinely, and these are people who would have experienced business over periods and could compare. And they're telling you, boy, you see last year, that was the worst Christmas I've had. You're hearing from average people who used to go get a little end here and there. They're saying now you can't, people who would have access social support, telling now is the hardest thing to get right now is a food card from the Division of Health. And before we know, and this, they are now able to make the comparison. I think that is where we are at now. People are now, because remember when we started, people were saying, give them time, give them time. And I think people have now looked at them for the last 2 years and they have had enough time to evaluate them and assess them. And so people are now able to make the comparison between the PNM of the past that they voted out and this current administration they voted in. And for the majority of voices I am hearing, they are saying when they do the analysis, when they do the comparison, Tobago was far better off under the PNM of old than this current administration, and that is the reality.
Because at the end of the day, I don't think what this administration has done is settle down to governance. It is still a political.
They're still campaigning.
Yes, it's highly charged politically in Tobago at this time, 2 years after the election. And you know the Bible says there's a time and a season for everything. So this is the season for governance. This is the season to take off your political hat and serve all of Tobago. The season will come again for the politics.
But you see, these people are governing by political bad mind, and it started from the onset. They, from the very start they started to resort to dismantling of units that they believe was somehow loyal to the PNM, and they didn't even care that whether the unit had value or not, whether they were people that were properly qualified and can add value. They didn't care. They just dismissed the people.
Or not the people were properly engaged and the unit was functioning. And you had people there who the earnings, their salary was their bread and butter. And to me, if you are saying you're coming in and you're dealing with bread and butter issues, to dismiss people without due process and due cause, that cannot be about bread and butter, but spite and vindictiveness.
They didn't care. And then you had the contractors, and it wasn't, they didn't just see that it wasn't just the contractors, it was hundreds and hundreds of Tobagonians who depended on these contractors for work. And because you then decided, one, that you're not going to pay them the monies that they are duly owed, so they can't even take care of the now, and then you're not going to give them any new work, so they can't even continue to for the future. It means that you right away, you segregate and discard hundreds of Tobagonians, hundreds of family. You take away from the economy these people spending power. And that is why we are in stagnation at this time, because you have now taken out a good chunk of the productive capacity of the island. And when you do that, and on top of that, what you have is that you are taking out from the island and you're not putting back in, because when you take $300 million in one go, and that is sent to contractors outside of Tobago, who other than the immediate work, they don't have any real interest in the development of Tobago, then you create a void. And this is why you are recognizing there's a serious decrease in the construction sector. There's a serious decrease in agriculture. And the reason why there's a decrease in agriculture, because while the PNM was there, the PNM was investing in the Tobago-based farmers. But when you now go and sign on a contract with a Trinidad-based company, and you now take away those opportunities from the Tobagonians, again, you are destroying the Tobago economy. And this is what is happening. So you've destroyed the construction, you have destroyed agriculture, and then when you look at tourism, you have right away, you cut the Virgin flight. You didn't even have a flight in place to replace so that. Even if Virgin was bringing 10 people, that would have gone into that would have been 10 rooms booked somewhere, and that would have been money contributed to somebody. You have taken that away. You have not replaced it with anything. You were one of the main architects of the sandals destruction, demise. Right? Where it would have driven agriculture, it would have driven construction, it would have driven tourism.
Every sector.
It would have driven one of the key pillars of tourism, which is access, airlift, coming into the destination. It would have added 1,200 quality rooms so that we can bring people front of the plane, because front of the plane meaning those persons who will book first class and spending capacities at a certain level, so that when they come, they also want to stay at some place that is first class. So you have to have top of the line. So yes, we want the community tourism, but the community tourism would not work for those people. And if you want to build a sustainable tourism sector, you cannot just lean on one side. You have to have a balance throughout. And therefore, you have to have accommodation that can cater to the big money spenders. You have to get accommodation for the medium income. And then you have to get for the backpackers and that kind of thing. The people who want to immerse into the community, immerse into the culture. But there are some people who just simply want to come to a destination and relax. Know that they get in the nice Caribbean breeze, but they are not too much into
the facility.
So you have to be able to cater to everybody.
And then the domestic tourism.
And what Sandals does is complement whatever marketing that the because you would admit and you would know when you turn on your TV, Sandals by itself markets every destination to which it has presence. And that by itself will create destination presence throughout the world without you having to spend 1 red cent. So these people have absolutely no clue. And I continue to say to Tobagonians, when you look at the track record of these people, how many of them were managers in anything before now?
Exactly.
How many of them have ever managed a business? How many of them have either have managed any organization of repute? And this is what we handed a gem. We handed this paradise that is Tobago to complete novice. And I am not surprised. I am not surprised as to the result, because they're just so, we have to forgive them, because they just do not have a clue how to manage. They do not have a clue how to lead. They do not understand the public service. And that is why now every time they bounce their head, they're blaming the public servants. But I remember Farley Chavez Augustine, when he wanted to hook the zip line to Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine, because he saw her as his competitor. He was telling Tobagonians that everything that happened, do not blame the public servant. It is the politician. He was telling them everything. Imagine at the time he was telling them to blame Tracy for everything. He said once it's something to do with the THA, blame Tracy. So how come is the public servants now?
And we have it up. So, we always on the ball with the information.
So I'm seeing Tasha. Tasha is now telling the media, not just the media, but all these people who are old and frustrated, because it's been months upon months. And the thing about it, you know, why I think was the most disappointing and hurtful part of this entire scenario is the lack of silence. To know that you owe me and you're not even coming to
lack of
communication. So you're not even explaining things.
Silence.
And then when you do open your mouth, you're not even taking responsibility. You're trying to tell them, you are now trying to pass the buck on the poor public servants who we know they aren't authorized to come in the public and clear the air. So I know public servants messaging me and telling me, no, they don't have no money in the votes.
Right.
But at the same time, these public servants cannot come out publicly and say that. So you are taking advantage of the public servants by telling the cultural activists and the cultural performance is the public servants to blame. But at the same time, how come you, when you flying, you always getting your per diem?
Always.
How come the public servants
could work effectively
for you? Right? So it tells me if you really want to pay the people, they will be paid. And it's about priority. It is about priority. And if you didn't care about these artists, if they were a priority to you, they will be paid just like how you're paying the Trinidadians. Because the Trinidadians get paid, you know?
Up front.
And the international acts get paid
up front.
So how come our people can't be paid up front just like everybody else?
And I mean, minority leaders, a point as you were making there, the circulation of cash for persons in Tobago has gone so low. A number of young men told me, you know, we have a common thing around Christmas, a PJ. So people in your community hire you, come and cut the yard, pressure wash the yard. You know that and all.
No.
People could not have afforded people doing it for themselves.
That is so true because I was driving, was it yesterday? And the person was saying, you know, I would normally pressure wash this yard. And I'm looking and I'm saying, I think you need to call them because the yard need a pressure washing. And in previous years, they would call to pressure wash. And what the person said to me is, I don't think the person have the wherewithal to call me to pour. And another situation, I traveled to Trinidad a couple of weeks ago. And a lady was saying, well, she is into the hairdressing and stuff like that. And she was saying that right now, persons prefer to do their hair for themselves because they don't have the excess cash to spend on those. That is now considered a luxury. When you took it for granted that, you know, after 6 weeks or whatever, but because of the uncertainty, because of what is happening in our economy in Tobago, people are not spending. Everything is basically basic needs. Food, shelter, clothing. Outside of that, the spending
really dry up.
And Mr. Moderator, before you move on, I just want to tie back into that whole issue. You know, people may have heard us talk about the continuous situation where the Tobago House of Assembly, which receives a budgetary allocation, and for the most part, we hope and trust that the focus, the priority would be to empower Tobagonians within the space to improve their lives in all facets. So our contractors, opportunities would be given to them and so forth. And then we have situations where we have the agents and agencies of the THA. So in this instance, speaking specific to ambulance service, and you know we have EHS, and you know usually EHS is an opportunity to have Tobagonians trained and employed, and then for Tobagonians to take care of Tobago's sick and treat with our emergency response. The information that I have at this time, because you know there has been a shortage in the supply of ambulance available. So I don't know what would have triggered the process. Usually Tobago purchases its own vehicles and it is managed by the EHS arm of the Tobago Regional Health Authority. My information is that a decision was taken by this current TRHA board to now move from managing the service through EHS to having this service outsourced.
What?
That is my information. My information is that the company is, again, a Trinidad-based company. This company, the information that I have, this company is located in La Romaine, South Trinidad.
South of the border again.
South Trinidad, that would now be providing ambulance services. And I would simply ask the secretary And I'm sure Tobagonians are asking, what wrong with we? What wrong with we? And what was the process?
Yes. What was the process?
What was the
is going
process?
to happen now to the current
And what
persons?
does this mean? I don't recall
Yesterday
seeing any kind of tender. What was the process to identify this company from South Trinidad? What is the cost? What are we paying? Because I remember, and you know what is sad? It is this secretary that told us they would have a website where we would be able to see every tender. And yet, I am being told, and it's up to the secretary to deny or to come clean or to clarify whether this information is true, that they are now provide the services or some aspect of ambulance services will be outsourced, and the company that will be used is a company from South Trinidad. And we want to know, how much are you paying this company for this service?
Minority Leader, a lot of questions just came based on that revelation, hot off the press. Because you're wondering why was this move necessary? Yes.
Correct.
What process did you undertake to determine that you want to move from having this in-house to outside? What is the cost-benefit analysis? Additionally, what is going to happen to the current persons that are engaged in this program, and the ambulances and all the investment?
Everybody.
Also, what was the process to engage? What part of the service will be outsourced? Is it the whole thing, part of it?
Correct.
And again, the minority leader, how much is it cost?
How many companies engaged who provided a proposal?
Well, how many companies knew? Because
what was the process?
What was the process? So we want to know what is the procurement process.
Wow.
So hot off the press, and Secretary, over to you. Over to you.
That is a Serena Williams serve. I don't think she could bring back that serve in her.
Over to you.
So to reiterate, we are calling on the Secretary of Health to provide some clarity on the information. The information was sent hot off the press.
Is it accurate?
We can't say yay or nay, but we are asking the relevant authority to come, and I am encouraging the members of the media, now that this information is out there, ask the questions. Sometimes the media has to ask the right questions to the people in authority, and we're asking the media to ask the right questions so that we can get some clarity on this particular
And while we're on health, I listened to the Secretary on news tonight telling all of Trinidad and Tobago that Tobago only has 4 COVID cases and 0 deaths. And if disingenuous and misleading was a response and a person, it would be that secretary. Because I want to ask the secretary, how many persons do they test for COVID? And how many persons actually going to come to test for COVID? So that you are telling with some, because we were told by this very secretary that they discontinued testing. So if you're not testing, how could you now tell us that you only, you understand? I find that such a disingenuous and misleading. And not that I want to be able to have COVID, but if you're treating with the public and public information, you must give us the full story. And the facts.
Correct.
And therefore, it is imperative that for public safety, you also have the right protocols. Because it was under your watch that you decided to discontinue in the first place testing. So how could you have proper surveillance if you're not testing?
And reporting.
And reporting.
Wow. Folks, we want to take a short break as we heading into our final bend, coming around to head to the finish line for the program this evening. We're going to take a short break. And when we get back, we again shift gears because we still have some very, very interesting discussions to present to you this evening. So continue to remain locked on. And it's not too late to invite other persons to tune in and make their comments. So we'll be right back after a short break.
Rotisserie, mouth-watering fries, salads, combos, and specials galore. Feeling for something to eat? Come and see. Our rotisserie is seasoned to the T. Kicking chicken, masala, and jerk roast. Crispy fries made from scratch. Who do you know can't beat that? Or salads freshly cut and packed. When you taste it, you'll be wanting to come back. So come check us out on number 2 Robinson Street, Uptown Scarborough, Tobago. We open on Saturday nights from 7:30 to 11:30 p.m. Monday to Thursday, we're open from 10 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. and on Friday, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Contact us at 772-7443 and all social media handles at The Rotisserie Factory.
You can now get whatever you need whenever you need it anywhere in Tobago with Tapago. Your meals, medication, groceries, and shopping all delivered directly to you. No more hassle, no more stress. Get the Tapago app today on Google Play or Apple App Store.
That's TAPPOGO and let us deliver to you.
Check our website at www.tapogo.app or call the experts at 494-TOGO and 484-4746. Tapago. Relax. We will get it to you. Tapago's at your service.
The best place to stay in Tobago is at Thorns Place with rates starting as low as 200 TT. Call or WhatsApp 745-7306 or 682-8676. We are located uptown Scarborough, 5 minutes away from the port. Remember, at Thorns Place, our aim is to make your stay safe and affordable.
Yes, folks, and we are back. As we head into the final segment of this evening's show, we want to begin by running 2 short clips. I want to start with the longer of the 2, coming out of an interview this morning with the Honorable Chief Secretary. Mr. Director, could you provide us with that clip, please?
All right, Mr. Augustine, let's get right into it. Well, I know that at the funeral of
Chris.
Former Chief Secretary, Mr. Ho Choi Charles, you did speak about this issue. And also, you had the Prime Minister speaking about really responding and saying that this issue of Tobago self-government, the Tobago Self-Government Bill and the Tobago Island Administration Bill would be brought to the Parliament sometime this year. Your reaction, Mr. Chief Secretary?
Anything but to have the national parliament or the central government rather discuss, debate, and pass requisite legislation that will allow for autonomy for Tobago. What that means in simple terms is that the Tobago House of Assembly will have lawmaking powers with jurisdiction rather specific to the Tobago space and its marine space, and that will allow the THA to really chart the socio-economic course for the island in an efficient way. Trinidad and Tobago were joined together somewhat 144 years ago this year, and for all of the 144 years that we have been together, there has been sort of a clamoring for there to be lawmaking function on the island of Tobago. And that is because just sometimes when you're in a union, you know, your needs get ignored, and it's not willfully ignored, but your needs have to compete with all the needs of the larger island. And sometimes there are some simple things that we can just do ourselves. And I'll give you a quick example. Back in 2000, down to the Parliament, has never made its way to the Parliament floor. It has never been debated by the Parliament. And one can argue that the Parliament has more important things to debate than marine parks in Tobago. But for us in Tobago, something that might seem simple and not as important or not a priority for the Parliament is a priority for us who wants to have sustainable development, who is into ecotourism, whose industries are dependent on that. Now, had we gotten this autonomy, then we would just pass the bill ourselves and manage our marine parks and our marine spaces ourselves. And so the crux of the matter is Tobago having the opportunity to have lawmaking functions and have it in a way that allows for the socio-economic development of the island of Tobago, and that generally excludes matters on foreign affairs and border security and those things for which we will want to see concurrence in the law, in the legislation. When we look at the two bills before Parliament, while the intentions may be good, we see that there are some glaring omissions. And so what we argued when it first came up is that all we need is for some amendments to what's before the Parliament and the inclusion of some important elements that were omitted from what Tobago sent down to the Parliament. And once we have that, then we believe, a piece of legislation that is sufficient and that will take Tobago to the next step. But we are just asking that we make the inclusions for those things that were inadvertently or perhaps even willfully omitted earlier on, have those included in the legislation, tighten up the loose ends and ensure that we have as perfect a piece of legislation as is possible.
Yeah.
And let me
So we just heard the Honorable Chief Secretary on an interview on Morning Edition with respect to the whole aspect and the issue of Tobago's autonomy, as indicated by the interviewer, Marlon. Dr. Rowley would have made certain statements at the recent funeral of the late Mr. Ho Choi Charles. And so I know that that particular statement with respect to bringing back the autonomy bill for debate in the House, that has indeed now raised a lot of pause. And we see the Chief Secretary here dancing his way around some of the questions being posed to him with respect to Tobago's autonomy. I must say, a lot more docile than he pretended a couple of years ago in the election campaign to be, in terms of how passionate he was in using the call for autonomy as a tool to also bring Tobagonians into a place where they felt the need to support the administration that he is now a part of. But now we're hearing a much more minority leader toned and calm approach to this whole issue. Your thoughts?
Well, what stood out to me is, again, the disingenuity of the man, because you recall, this is the same Chief Secretary that was telling Tobagonians the bills were so bad to reject it, and on that basis to make their vote. And now he's now turning his tongue, flip-flopping as usual, in his usual flip-flopping way. And he has flipped now and flopped to say it is something good, and perhaps there's just some minor changes that should be added and that kind of thing. And he kept saying we. And I have to ask the question, who is this we? Because the process of autonomy does not belong to any one person. In fact, the process of autonomy was one that involved all of Tobago going throughout the length and breadth of Tobago, gaining responses. And when we had that process, you had differing opinions on what autonomy should be, but then there were consensus. So that is why who is he referring when he says we? And then even after having the consensus, it was had with the knowledge that not everything that we send to Trinidad will eventually make its way into the bill, because if that was the approach, then we would not have had the Tobago House of Assembly of 1980, because what Mr. Robinson placed in the Parliament in 1977, at the end of it, what we got in 1980 was far different. And even when you check the history of the amended THA Act of 1996, what started in the discussions as the proposals also did not make its way as the final thing that was voted on. And therefore, every Tobagonian who is reasonable and rational would appreciate that not everything that was sent down will eventually make its way. But what we have here, and I think all Tobagonians should get themselves, who are really interested in the development of Tobago, should get themselves familiar with this document. And I think it's available in the library especially. And what I would do is to make some copies try to have some copies available at the office of the minority leader. And I encourage Tobagonians, young ones, seniors, and all Tobagonians, people in the THA, to read this, because this is the and there's various versions of this, but this was the final version that is now in front of that is in the committee stage. And what this does is basically treat with the fundamental intentions of giving to Tobago the autonomy that we all desire, which is the ability for us to make laws over those things. The same Marine Park, we'll now be able to make laws for the Marine Park. And there was a situation or discussion about definition of Tobago. Tobago is defined within the context of Trinidad and Tobago, and creating an administrative boundary of 11 miles that gives Tobago sufficient marine space to treat with its governance. Tobago now has the ability, straight off the bat, 6.8%. And what is interesting about this 6.8%, we have had two budgets that this, I think it's 3, right? 2 or 3 budgets this administration has brought so far. Two. And every one of those 2 budgets, what they have asked for is in and around the 6.8%. So right off the bat, without even having to go and argue a case, they would now be getting the 6.8%, the 4-point-something billion. And that for the layman, we usually get around 2.5 billion. Tobago right away would get an additional $1.5 billion. The THA as an administration now moves from where you're constricted to 9 secretaries to now having the ability, you can put as many divisions and as many secretaries as is needed for the governance. That also means that right away you have to employ more people, more opportunities. We are going to get a division of legal affairs, which our young lawyers could look forward to contributing to the legislative process, the treating with some of the domestic legal issues. Is going to be a vast improvement. You talk about the public service, whereas the proposal is not to create a whole new Tobago public service, because what you would do now is really deny Tobagonians who would have built up service and now in line to become permanent secretaries and deputy permanent secretaries, that ability to have that upward mobility. Because remember, in the Tobago space, you will now be so limited, and you would lose that opportunity to participate in the wider Trinidad and Tobago public service. So what they have recommended is that you have 2 Tobago-based representatives on the public service and the teaching service commission. And to have a quorum, one must be present so that you can treat right there and then with Tobago matters. So perhaps you will have an agenda item that will deal with Tobago matters at every juncture, and Tobago would get its priority. You have the ability to borrow. Up to now, we have to get permission from the Minister of Finance. Now you have a bigger caveat which it says that the Minister of Finance cannot unreasonably deny you. So he has to provide some kind of real compelling argument why you cannot be able to borrow. But outside of that, you can now borrow. You can now invest. You can now create your own heritage and stabilization type fund. And you can now participate on the stock exchange and on other markets to invest on behalf of Tobago. You can also, within this bill, this bill allows for to treat with the areas that it is even more improved, because it tells you simply that these are the areas that are responsible, the central government is responsible for, and basically Tobago is responsible for the rest. So it gives you even greater coverage of administrative control. You also have the fiscal review committee that gives you an additional opportunity to treat with Tobago's development needs. So all like the Scarborough development plan and so you can now lobby for that through the fiscal review committee and all your other off-budget expenses. So you're getting 2 bites at the cherry. You have the ability, one, where you start with the base 6.8, and even in that is just the base. You can still even ask for more and argue for more, and then you have the fiscal review. So the bill itself treats with the fundamental things that Tobago needs to have its self-determination, that Tobago needs to manage itself. And of course, we have one of the most important things, the lawmaking powers, where Tobago can now make its own laws for right here and have it assented by the president. No longer have to go through this long drawn out process through the cabinet and then wait for it to become part of the parliamentary agenda and so forth. So the point is, where we are now, I'm saying to the Chief Secretary, you alone cannot determine Tobago's future, Tobago's fate. And that process that you have engaged in is fatally flawed, because you cannot appoint a committee all on your own and then say this is Tobago's position. You have a minority that have the backing of over 11,000 Tobagonians that voted for the PNM. In fact, this minority has more legitimacy than the current executive, because this executive, they abandoned their mandate and they are now all individuals in the house. So all they do is represent themselves in a real sense. They don't even represent their districts anymore. But this minority is backed by a party that got the support of over 11,000 Tobagonians. So then how could you leave out the minority in the process? How could you leave out the other political parties, the IDA and all the others? How could you leave out everybody and then come to say this is Tobago's position? You are not Tobago, and you cannot determine Tobago's future by yourself.
Minority Councillor, closing remarks. We want to be obedient tonight.
Yes. No, I just want to piggyback on the minority leaders and in a short 2 seconds or 5 seconds, it's not about unanimity, because I don't think we will get unanimity in this, but it's about building consensus. What can we as Tobagonians all agree is beneficial for us moving forward? We would have moved from the 1980 to the 1996. Now we are moving another step further, and it's a continuous thing. So it's continuous progression over a period of time. I don't think everything we ask for we may get, but how do we build consensus to move us along a trajectory?
Very well said. Folks, you heard it here on the Minority Report, and I want to encourage you, stay tuned next week. The discussions are going to build even more. I want to encourage you as well to tune in on Thursday to the sitting of the 26th sitting of the Assembly Legislature. Next week, Thursday, sorry. Where the minority leader and minority council will be bringing the motion to the House. A very, very important motion to all of Tobago. And so I want you to make sure and save the date and sit by your TV, your radio, whatever, get on Facebook and log into the channel, because what is going to be said in that sitting will affect all of Tobago. I'm Marilyn David saying thank you for staying on with us, for staying tuned, and for staying logged on, and carry the message of the Minority Report throughout all of Tobago. Have a wonderful evening.